Good morning, Auntie Sylvia. You're lying. A warm morning to all of you out there. It's cold, I know. Today I even have my mukame with me. I was like, gee, this weather. So, good morning and thank you for joining us another morning for our 8 a.m. Mentorship Academy. You know, we bring this baby every single day, Monday to Friday. We show up, we rock up, we do what we got to do. And of course, we give what we give back to society. One thing I always say is for those that are serious, if you're one of those that like are deadly serious about, you know, your success and about your progress and about what you want to achieve, then this is the platform because we do this very consistently. So it's really up to you to decide if you want to run along with us and then make sure you take note of what's taught and then literally, you know, put into action everything that you take note of on this platform. I assure you it will take you very far. The sad thing with a lot of people is they don't have the resolve to do what it takes. The Bible says it. Do not be just a hearer of the word, but be a doer of the word. So in other words, when you receive instruction of any sort, it's not about just receiving instruction and saying, oh, this was powerful, but it's about applying what you learn. So today we're here again. Every day we come here. Monday, it's myself. Tuesday, it's Dr. Sunshine with Mindset Change. Wednesday, it's Mompreneurs, even though right now we are doing Marketplace. They will be back soon. Thursdays, it's Dr. Nelly with Prosperity for Your Soul. And Friday, we have new image and health tips. So that's a very exciting schedule right there, which any of you can make sure you partake in. If you're part of our groups, you will see the notifications, but of course, we also share notifications on our pages so you can see that. So, and that's another way in which you can connect. Now, I've been doing the series on bootstrapping, and I really just want to jump straight into this. And today we're on the fourth aspect of bootstrapping, which is how to scale your business. Take some notebooks, share this. This is going to be very insightful for you. So as I've said before, there are 4 key phases to bootstrapping your business. We have examined the first 3, which are starting, validating, and optimizing the business. Now, in case you didn't see that, starting means what is my product or service? That's starting. And then validating who wants my product or service. Optimizing how best can I produce my product or service. And today is scaling. So scaling is how many people can I get to sell my product or service to. You see how that works? So I can tell you with certainty as I speak from experience that this is the hardest part of the 4. Like to scale, agreed. Most people really struggle in that. In fact, all businesses will always grow to their level of inefficiency where they then stall or plateau. The reason for this is simple. When any new startup commences, it has its owners as the very business itself. They are everything in the business. This then means they are in marketing, they're in logistics, they're in operations, they're in finance, and even office care. Like they literally do everything. You know what I mean? They also handle the inventory or even create it at times. Okay, if in the service industry, they are the very service as well. This may be great to save costs and ensure delivery, but as the business or the number of customers increases, this becomes a very serious problem. It actually becomes a bottleneck to growth. Scaling has 2 key factors at its core, and these are capacity and capability. Okay, with capacity, it is the ability to manage and satisfy all new business as it increases in quantity. This often means new customers. Capability relates to the ability to effectively manage large numbers of orders and efficiently satisfy all your customers. Okay, remember that I mentioned before that being effective means doing the right things, whilst being efficient means doing things right. First refers to getting results, whilst the second means using the least amount of resources to do so without wastage. In other words, minimal wastage. That's the second one, and that's efficiency. Okay. Not only that, the capacity is greatly strained and thus sees many businesses fail to grow to become a large multinational or corporation. In fact, the very word corporate means a body. Corporate, corpus. That's where the word corporate comes from. Corpus, body. So it is a number of people coming together to work as one body. So every business takes a life of its own. It becomes a living entity. That's interesting but true. So it becomes a living entity, and it now performs the duty for which it was set up. It is a combination of people who come together to do that. So when you're running a business by yourself, you're not an entity. You're just an individual, even though, yes, you register an entity which runs separate from you. But essentially, as long as that business is you, I don't need to go further. So then, there are 5 basic things that need to happen in order to see any business scale fully. Okay, when scaling takes place, the business can grow to any level imagined, provided the founders remember that the business environment is very dynamic and changes all the time. And thus, the ability to remain relevant to business trends becomes vital for survival. What do I mean by that? What I mean very simply is that we live in a very dynamic environment. So there are things that happen, and I'm going to talk about those. I'll tackle those. Things like the environment can change, things like regulatory legal framework can change, laws can change, things change all the time, and these can have an impact. Sometimes even just COVID shows up, the whole thing just goes south. I mean, these things happen. Many businesses closed because of COVID and the rules that came as a result of it. So that's what I mean, that it's always dynamic and changing. And so the ability to remain relevant to business trends becomes vital for survival. So the 5 keys to mastering trends are: anticipate, then prepare for change, then adapt, then accumulate, and then retain all the growth. I've dealt with this in some other training, so I'm not going to get into it. So then, the 5 factors needed to scale your business are: 1, assess and strategize. Assess and strategize. So you don't just go in, what's that word? You don't just go chipante pante, no. You don't just go anyhow. You have to really assess what's going on and then strategize. My good friend Madsen Ngandu is always dealing with the topic of Coach Madsen. He's always dealing with the topic of strategy. Strategy is real, guys. It's not a joke. Any business, any entry into any market or any place needs a thorough strategy. We deal with strategy as well as a company, Destiny Peak. We help companies to strategize. 2, seek financing. So once you strategize, you will need financing one way or another, because there are things in your strategy that will require to be funded. So you need to seek financing. We'll talk about that. This is in scaling, by the way. 3, secure your sales. Find a way to really lock those sales so that they just don't diminish, because that's your heartbeat, that's your bloodline. If you don't have sales, forget, close the business. 4, invest in tech. I'm telling you guys, investing in technology is not even funny. I mean, just this morning I woke up and realized, oh my God, my hosting services are all down, all of them. That means emails, everything is down, and I don't know why. Yesterday I got the warnings, and then I don't know. I just forgot to do that renewal. And so this morning I'm waking up and everything is down, and I have to run and do that. So as soon as I'm done with this, straight to that. But the point is that you need to invest in tech, because it's the end factor right now. It's the end factor. And then 5, which is very critical, hire the right staff or strategically outsource. So choose one of the 2. Get the right staff, strategically outsource. In fact, for me, both. And strategically outsource. So look at how you're going to do that properly. So let's begin with the first one, which is assess and strategize. Take note of that. Assess and strategize. So you will need to carry out a very deep and detailed assessment of your business. The best way to do this is by obtaining a business plan. The current perception is that a business only needs such a document when they are seeking funding. That is so bad. That we couldn't be further from the untruth, further from the truth, rather. Okay, so that's the perception. Okay, the saddest part is that this is only acquired expressly for funding, and so because it was not really about the business but the funding, the business fails to remain sustainable upon getting the funding. So we have a lot of companies that receive funding after a business plan got given loans, and then they completely tank. Why? because of what I've just said. So the business plan is the blueprint of the business and is a very detailed document that outlines what the business requires in order to grow and become a sustainable entity. Remember, sustainability is the key to remaining in business. If you cannot sustain your operations, you will close. Like my good friend always says, you'll be toast, literal toast. So you need to make sure you can sustain the business, and the only thing that gives you the strategy on how to do that is a business plan. So thankfully, there are many experts who help with business plans, including myself, all right? But one must realize that these documents are very detailed, okay? They require quite some work and are critical for your success, especially if you want to scale your business and grow beyond current levels. So here we're talking about scaling now. We're not talking about starting. What is my product or service? That's so mundane. You can do that on your own. And who wants my product and service? You can do that on your own. Literally, just go out into the market, learn a few tricks about how to do that, and you'll figure out. And even optimizing, getting all these components of the business to run efficiently, you can do that on your own. And to be honest, you can do all of that without a business plan. I'm telling you, some of these businesses you just start and it start working and you start making sales and everybody's happy and you're baking cakes or whatever it is. But when you want to scale, that's a whole other story, my friends. When you want to scale, you've got to change. Now it's about getting into that blueprint and say, okay, so what's our blueprint? How do we proceed from where we are to where we want to go? And that's why I even do in my Unleashing Your Destiny program, we talk about the 1-year strategic roadmap. So you need a roadmap. You need from here, we'll do this by month 2, by month 5, by whatever. You need that. And then at the same time, you need a strategic plan. So myself and the man called Kafarman, we did the strategic blueprint and business plan for Care Peak Hospital, which is Dr. Mojajati's hospital. And they've grown in leaps and bounds, and the blueprint is literally coming before our eyes. It's coming alive before our very eyes. But you see, it needs visionary leadership who actually realize that we need to do a deep assessment and a business strategy. We can't just wake up and go. Because you're growing, yes, you can see that there's demand for your business, but then it reaches a point it'll plateau. So if it plateaus, that means now at that point you need strategy. And the reason why you bring in an outsider is because we suffer, all of us without exception, suffer from something called cognitive bias. We have bias because we're in the business. So there's a lot we're dealing with and we can't see certain things because we're too engaged in that business. So that's why you bring an outsider, because when you bring an outsider, they don't have the biases you have. They don't have the blind spots you have. They don't have all the, factors that would normally lead to one not really seeing, because you're in it. It's like asking a fish to describe water. It can't, because it's in the water. So it really doesn't know how it's going to describe that. But you who's outside the water can see that there is water and there is air and they're different and you can describe them very well. So that's the challenge that we face when we are running our own businesses. That's why when you run your own business, bring someone else to do your strategy, not yourself. So one of your greatest mistakes is to always use yourself because of bias. Now, anyway, we continue. So it adequately covers key areas. This is the business plan, including, so let me tell you what a business plan should have. So if you're smart, you'll be pausing the video to take note of everything I'm going to say now. So this is the areas that your business plan should cover. First, it covers what precisely your business is. Describe it well. Describe what your business is, okay? Who it caters for. That means who are your customers, where, your product or service must be well defined. Your mission, which is purpose, service, work. Your vision, the end game. Your goals, the process or the little objective benchmarks that you need to bring about the manifestation of your vision. Okay, your customers and competition. You cannot ignore competition. In fact, ignore competition at your own peril, because somebody will come and do it better than you and do it so well, they'll take all your customers with you. So you've got to be always observing your customers, but at the same, observing your competition, but at the same time ensuring you're remaining innovative and cutting edge at all times. At all times. Then also in your business plan, your management and operations. And remember, operations cover a lot. You've got production, you've got admin, You've got procurement, depending on how big you want to grow. You've got, in fact, production for me is critical. You've got marketing, you've got sales, you've got human resource, somebody to manage all these people. These are critical. So you don't want to ignore management and operations. Okay, finances are another critical factors. Where and how are you going to sustain your operations? See, the lifeline of every business is cash flow. So how are you going to manage your cash flow? That's where at that level, as you're scaling, whether you like it or not, you need to bring in an accountant. You may probably need to look at forming a board for accountability and governance purposes. These are huge. The board idea, and that sounds crazy, like forming a board. And a board, by the way, is not, excuse me, a board is not just my uncle, my cousin, my wife. No. A board has to carry the clout necessary to make the business perform. Anyway, so these are all critical factors that must be in your business plan. It will also ensure the business plan, by the way, also ensures that you carry out a detailed SWOT analysis. What is SWOT? Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. This is so critical. I can't even begin to explain how critical that is for your personal business plan. Here, I'm not talking about a bankable business plan. I'm talking about the plan for your business as you plan to move from where you've plateaued because you've optimized your business to where you want to scale it. Because scaling essentially means multiplying your output, to the public. That may mean more outlets, that may mean more numbers, and being able to manage it. So scaling is really, really serious. It's why you look at your strengths, your weaknesses, the opportunities and threats in your business and everything about it. Very important assessment. Then there's another one, which is PESTLE. Now PESTLE, like PESTLE. So this one tends to be carried out by very big corporations more than the small startups, but believe me, this is also very important, especially if you're talking about scaling. This becomes critical. So what does PESTLE stand for? Political. What is the political environment in that market? Suppose you're scaling and your plan now is to go and start a business in, for argument's sake, Uganda, or you want to go and do business in Chad or in Burkina Faso or wherever. You have to look at the political situation and ask yourself, can that end up becoming a challenge later? Do we have stability in terms of macroeconomic factors? Do we have the factors that will make it possible to run that business without getting into problems politically? Economic. What are the fundamentals in the economy in that country? What are the numbers? What kind of GDI do they have? GDP. Sorry, GDP do they have? What are the what's the income per capita? So what's it called? Income per capita, I think. Yes. What are people earning? What's the spending power? Those are very important questions. Social. What is the general feel of people when it comes to society and their norms? There are certain businesses that cannot thrive in certain environments. You know that, right? Yeah. Like you can't run a bar in a Muslim country. You get my point. You see where I'm going. So these are things that you have to really look into. And then technological. What is the advancement of technology in that market? If your business relies a lot on technology, will that be an impediment? Will that be a minus for you? So some countries have a very big challenge with internet and the availability of online services and the networks and things like that. So you find out if your business is going to rely a lot on that, that could be problematic. Okay, legal. That's your literal regulatory framework. That's a big deal. Some countries do not. For example, sorry to bring this up, but I mean it's a fact. If you run a business, I don't know why I'm using this example. Let me think of something else. Yeah, suppose you sell alcohol and you distribute alcohol. Again, Muslim countries like the United Arab Emirates are a non-starter. You're not going to operate from there because they don't allow such. They have very strong laws against, the taking of alcohol. So again, that's why you need to look at what the legal framework is as far as that country is concerned. And in those countries like the UAE, they also don't allow charging interest. They do what they call Muslim banking. So again, you got to ask yourself, what's the benefit for your bank or your organization if you go to such a market where they have all these laws against usury? So very important. Then environment itself. So environmental, so the actual environment. Is it a desert? Is it a rainy place? What kind of place is it like? What are the environmental factors there? And many times environmental and social kind of tie together. So you need to do a deep assessment as you look at scaling this business of yours. Now, these then ensure you now know what your critical success factors are, as well as actions that the business must undertake to see success. This is why it is very critical that this document, the business plan, be done. As you can tell, this is a relatively costly undertaking. Yep. Okay. But then ask yourself this question. Can you imagine a house that is built without any plan? Most would agree that such a house would be anarchic, to say the least, and actually a disaster waiting to happen. So there's a lot of businesses that could have gone further, but they did not sit to go through this very critical stage I'm talking about. And for me, I think the business plan, even though we create it, we must remember that we live in a dynamic environment. So if things are changing, you need to factor those in. Let me give you a very good example. Clothing and textile is a very, very good example in this country. Clothing and textile, you know, there was a time we ran, my mom pioneered a very powerful clothing company. That company is gone today. And I can give you the factors. One of the biggest factors is that when we went into the AGOA deal, and then from there, the environment changed, and then doors were open for the importation of Salaola, that had an impact on what one could do from a tailoring standpoint. I'm telling you. I noticed that a few companies have been setting up to do tailoring, and they're tailoring suits and design clothes and things like that. I know from being experienced in that field that it's not as easy as it looks, and your biggest problem for scaling purposes is always going to be your human resource. That's your number one problem, because you need really skilled tailors. And if there's people that are so difficult to deal with, it's blue collar tailors. I don't even have explanations for just how challengingly difficult those people are. So you find that, yes, you want to make these high quality clothes, but you as the owner have to be sitting on those machines and doing most of the tailoring, because probably you're very good at it. And then you're trying to find other people. And then in the process of finding those people, some of these tailors start actually doing what we call private jobs with your clients. I mean, that's so common. And so you're fighting that, and then at the same time, quality control, delivery deadlines. So you find a lot of these tailoring companies and fashion companies that suffering with delivery deadlines. Now, whilst you're fighting with all that, remember the Chinese are coming with mass-produced items as well. So the only niche that's available now is what we call the higher niche, the ones who need tailored clothes. So the people with large bodies, individuals who are very particular about their clothing, so they want a particular standard. Yeah, those will come to you, and they tend to be quite financially solid. But the question is, how many of those are in your market, and how many are you going to be able to cater to, and then do you have the personnel to make sure that that's working? Oh, man, nightmare. So those are things that you need to assess, and so a lot of people don't do proper assessments on that one. And that's why you see all these little tailors all over the place. We could go into mass production, but for a certain quality of clothes, you need certain quality and skilled workers. Many of those would rather work for themselves or make private jobs. Even if they come to work for you, they're not really yours. So it's a nightmare. So these are some of the challenges, eh? So anyway, back to the business plan. So this is the only way in which you will adequately assess your business thoroughly and check all aspects of it to determine if it has what it takes to really scale and grow to national or even international levels. When such is done, it will immediately show all the areas that require attention. So that's why you need the plan. And that's why you need an outsider. Because when you're an insider, you're so cognitively biased to everything going on that you can't see where you're missing it. You can't. It's just not possible. I know myself. I know. I understand this because I do this with companies all the time. You will not see stuff. And it's in those meetings that you really start to see the stuff. And that's why in a good business plan, unless you're by yourself, a good business plan and strategy session should involve all your key personnel, because you've already optimized. So probably you have people working with you. So you need those personnel because they see far more than you do. And when you open up the environment to free talking and openness, they'll show you things you can't even see yourself. Okay, so this is where the acquisition of the right personnel and technology systems and processes, tools and alliances comes in very handy. You cannot be able to know what is required until such an undertaking, which one? A business plan, has been done. Lastly, when writing your business plan, remember, cheap is expensive. Cheap is expensive, my friends. I don't even know how to explain this. You know, it's like the health thing we talk about all the time. If you think herbal and health remedies are expensive, fancy what a stroke or heart attack will cost you. But how expensive is a heart attack? Or how expensive is a stroke? Exactly. You will find that the stroke can leave you permanently disabled. The stroke can leave you messed up. Why am I bringing the stroke issue? Because that's exactly what I'm saying. If you're running a business, if it's a body, you need to make sure that you spend enough. And so this idea of a business plan is not a joke. I'll give you another very good example. One of the reasons our businesses closed back then was what I call hemorrhaging, financial hemorrhaging. What is financial hemorrhaging? The same private jobs I'm talking about. You will be amazed how workers can rob you blind. Like, I'm not joking. They will steal from you in ways you didn't even imagine were possible. These guys, in fact, if you don't have a proper system to seal all those hemorrhaging areas of finance, they will form an entire cartel of workers. I mean, I've seen that. They will literally agree from manager down. Everyone is in on it and they're all stealing and making money. And you're running that business and you're wondering why you're not making money and why things are stuck and why you're failing to pay suppliers and why. I mean, you're seeing the activity, but you're not seeing the money. See? So many times when you bring in these experts and you do a proper strategy, experts will guide you on what to do to ensure you seal all the loopholes. Because many times when you're busy with business, you know, being the core purpose for your establishment, you will not have time to say, let me check and see what's happening there. Let me check and see what's happening there. You tend to start trusting the accountants and trusting the bookkeepers and trusting the process and seeing the money coming into the bank and suppliers. Yet you don't realize that there's theft actually going on. Everybody who's run, I have a number of colleagues who've run filling stations. Mudala, let me tell you, that business requires nkaka of a person, because the level of theft that goes on in this filling station business is not funny. It is headache-inducing, stress-increasing business. You've got to be present, you've got to be alert. There are so many aspects to that business that are just a nightmare. Another example I can give you is the one that is a bar. A bar or restaurant, especially a bar. The amount of stealing in bars is not even funny. And that's not the only one. I mean, in Temba, you think you've employed a person here, they are robbing you blind. Mobile money, mobile money, oh my God. You know, so you need to understand what I'm telling you, that you have to put in place proper systems to help you. So we've come to the end. In my next session, we will look at other aspects of scaling. So I just tackled, I think, assess and strategize alone. Imagine, I haven't even gone to the others, but that's how intense this is. So we're going to look at Seek Finance, I think, but let me just see how it goes. But it's very important to remember what I've said, that this is the key to sealing the loopholes. Many businesses have closed because they didn't do a proper strategy. They scaled. There was so much money, but they were rope blind. They were very inefficient. There were so many things they didn't take into account, and that's how they failed to scale. So that's part of the services we offer. I'm a strategy analyst. I help businesses create strategy, create business plans, and basically put in place all the necessary tools to scale. That's something we offer. So I hope you had a great insight, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow when you join Dr. Sunshine Sylvia in her session on Mindset Change Program. Have a great day and make the day count. Carpe diem.